Welcome back to PC-88 Paradise, the series where we take a close look at classic games for the NEC PC-88, the most popular Japanese PC series of the 1980s. I'm Mr. Jakes. So what's Michael? The first I heard of it was years ago when I stumbled across a copy of the PC-88 game for sale. I didn't buy it, but it did stick in my mind, like, what the hell is this? Well, it turns out that it was based on a manga and anime series that has been mostly forgotten today, even in Japan. What's Michael first appeared as a manga in 1984 by Makoto Kobayashi, and stars a dancing cat who he named after Michael Jackson. The series would find modest success, and in the latter half of the 80s it would be adapted into 2 anime OVA episodes and a 45-episode TV series. Not to mention 2 live-action TV specials, with puppets. In the West, the obvious comparison would be Garfield, or maybe Heathcliff. Seriously, where's the love for Heathcliff? But while What's Michael also stars an orange tabby cat, the similarities mostly end there. What sets the series apart, I think, is its flexible characters and settings for each short segment. In one, the star of the series, Michael, may be just a regular house cat who can't talk, while in another, he'll be an anthropomorphic talking cat who lives in a world populated by other talking animals, or anything in between. It all depends on whatever the particular gag calls for. And while you might think this would be confusing, it turns out that humans are surprisingly quick to grasp the premise and rules of a particular piece of sketch comedy or whatever. Indeed, at the beginning of each segment, it isn't too hard to figure out what's Michael this time. But no matter the setup, the gags in What's Michael are almost always based on the silly things that cats do. For instance, the very first segment in the TV series shows why cats can't play baseball. But in most segments, Michael is a regular house cat, owned by various owners, most often the Obayashi family, creating some semblance of story continuity, at least for the segments with the Obayashis. And by the way, since today's game is based on the TV series, I'd better point out that the Obayashis were renamed to the Kobayashis there, with the husband's profession also changed to manga artist to match up with the series' creator. The manga series has been officially translated to English, but the TV series is especially hard to find, even in Japanese. It was never released on DVD or Blu-ray, and the old 80s VHS and Laserdisc releases are almost as hard to find as this game. The first 9 episodes have actually been uploaded to YouTube, but don't ask me about the legality of that. Okay, but now finally getting to video games. The one I'm covering today actually wasn't the only one to be based on the series. In 1987, a game for the Famicom Disk System starring Michael would help Japanese children to learn English. And in 2003, Michael would make a brief return in Japan for a puzzle game people could play on their flip phones. But today's game is a graphic adventure, released in 1989 by MicroCabin, our friends who made the Zack series. MicroCabin made a number of these licensed anime titles for Japanese PCs in the 80s, the others based on the much more well-known properties Maison Ikkoku, Urusei Yatsura, and Kimagure Orange Road. What's Michael seems like kind of the odd one out to me, being the only one I'd never heard of before, despite having lived for 25 years in Japan. But since this is a MicroCabin game, I know we can at least count on the music to be pretty good. This one uses all FM adaptations of the BGM and songs from the TV series. I wish I had bought this game back when I first saw it. It's now become extremely hard to find, and a bit expensive. Luckily, this copy is in near-perfect condition. Inside, here's a survey card, and a support card for players with technical issues or broken discs. Next, there's a form to send away for a hint book for the game. The manual is very short, but is in full color. It's made to work with either the PC-88 or PC-98 versions of the game. There are 3 floppy disks. Gotta love those stickers. To start the game, we simply insert the first 2 discs and power up. So first we can select Start or Continue, and starting up gives us a parody of the MGM Studios logo, and then some kind of animation with Michael and mice running by, which ends eventually with Michael getting pinched by a crab, before the title card, the entertainment adventure game of What's Michael? Then we're thrown right into the game, where we begin in the Kobayashi's living room. Mr. Kobayashi and Michael's now wife, Popo, are there. Popo tells Michael a rumor that one of the neighborhood cats, who we'll talk a lot about later, was recently kidnapped. She was returned soon after, but Michael and Popo both agree that they'd better be careful out there. Popo also mentions here that she doesn't feel very well. But forget about that for now. We can move to the kitchen and go bother Mrs. Kobayashi for a while. She will give Michael a can of cat food, but Michael's not hungry, so he'll just take it with him. We also can move to Michael's litter box, which is where we can save the game. To save, you'll need to temporarily insert a blank disc and drive to.
What's Michael?
We can go outside and explore the rest of the apartment building. You can move backward and forward to get from one apartment entrance to another. This circular animating hallway interface actually reminds me of Enix's game, Jesus. And it's weird here that the hallway appears to be circular, since we know it isn't. I went to every door on the 3 floors that you can access here, rang the doorbell, and tried to open the doors, but not a single one did anything. You can also go to the entranceway, but can't get out of the building yet. By this time I was already sick of wandering around with nothing to do, so I went straight to the walkthrough. Nowadays, you're really not going to want to play this game without one, and it's extremely fortunate that someone was kind enough to write one. So back home, both of Michael's human masters have gone out, and Michael discusses with Popo that it seems weird that they were unable to communicate with the human characters earlier. I don't know why that's weird, since in every one of the episodes where Michael is owned by the Kobayashis that I've seen, he can't talk to them. But what we can do now is go and visit the apartment 2 doors down. Ringing the doorbell here still appears to do nothing. Who would guess that ringing it a second time gives you some signs of life? I love how one of the responses from the occupant is, "If it's NHK, go away, I don't watch." The Japanese public TV station NHK is infamous for going door to door and forcing everyone who owns a TV to pay their monthly fee for the channel. Anyway, after the 4th ring, the designer of the game answers the door. He apologizes and says he'll change the story settings so that now in this world the cats can communicate with the humans. Why, that's convenient. I guess it's a tribute to how the rules seem to change between each little story in What's Michael. But when Michael goes back home again, he finds that this time the door is locked and nobody answers the door. So now conveniently there are a number of new things we can do in the building. In the hallway we find a stray cat who says she saw a strange man carrying a cat running out of the building. Michael immediately concludes that Popo has been kidnapped. He becomes even more sure of this when he finds one of Popo's hairs at the building entrance. And so begins the plot of the game. Michael needs to rescue his wife, Popo.
What's Michael?
So next, for some reason, we've got to go around to various apartments before it will let us out of the building. There's one room where you can take a rest and listen to the music from the game. The game has a few Easter eggs featuring cat characters from other anime, including Totoro here. It seems they managed to get away with it by just never calling any of the characters by their full name. One character who frequently appears in the What's Michael series is a Yakuza guy who loves cats, known as Yakuza K, and it's a good thing he does. He happens to have taken a photo of Popo since she's so cute, and he gives the photo to Michael. It will surely be useful in the quest to find her. Now, for no reason at all other than the fact that it's the right time in the story, we can finally leave the apartment building. For the parts outside the building, we have to replace Disc 2 with Disc 3, and so we move on to what the walkthrough calls Chapter 2 of 4.
What's Michael?
For the outdoor parts, you use the number keys to move in the cardinal directions, while the arrow keys continue to operate the menu. Here, instead of the litter box, you can climb on top of any building to save. First, at the park, we meet a couple who seem to be deeply in love, and we can show them the photo of Popo, though they aren't much help. This game takes place back in the days when Japan had public trash cans, and searching the trash will eventually yield some breadcrumbs we can take, and looking around 5 times will give an appearance of the cat bus from Totoro. Another place we can visit is the Cat Cafe, which made a few appearances in the series. Now, as I happened to mention in my Stonks 9800 video, cat cafes in real-life Japan weren't actually a thing until 2005. And in this 80s series, the Cat Cafe works very differently. The cats are all contained in a glass cage, like in a zoo, and they're only for looking at. I'm pretty sure this concept was just made up for the series, and no cafe like this ever actually existed, but who knows? Here a customer accidentally gives Michael some booze instead of water, and Michael does his little dance as he often does in the series. Also, looking around here 7 times will eventually yield an appearance by the character Kotatsu Neko from Urusei Yatsura. Next, here's an encounter with the other Yakuza character of the series, Yakuza M. This guy doesn't like cats, and Michael is always screwing up his plans and blowing his cover. Anyway, this is one of the many scenes that you have to watch in order to progress the game, despite the fact that it does nothing to advance the plot. Next is another encounter with a regular character, a detective named Gerard Lee, who is always chasing after a fugitive named Richard Kimbley. Some of you may recognize that these character names are similar to the ones from The Fugitive, but since that movie didn't come out until 1993, here they are actually referencing the 1960s TV series it's based on, rather than the Harrison Ford movie. Apparently both were very popular in Japan.
I don't care!
But next we'll meet a much more important character, the end boss really, Nyajira. Nyajira is a giant cat in the neighborhood who picks on all the other animals, and whose name I guess would translate to Meowzilla, though I'm pretty sure it's Catzilla in the English manga. Anyway, Nyajira is owned by this actress lady who calls her Catherine. Later outside, Michael runs into Nyajira again, and when Michael asks Nyajira if she knows anything about Popo's whereabouts, she responds with only silence. I'm pretty sure Nyajira rarely ever talks in the series anyway. Here we have to use the fight command in the menu for the first time, after which we're just shown a bunch of graphics of Michael getting his ass kicked, and afterward Michael finds some of his food items are gone. And believe it or not, losing this fight is a required step in the game.
What's Micah?
So in the next part, Michael is basically going around gathering information on Nyajira's weaknesses and collecting items that might help him beat her, in addition to continuing his search for Popo. At the produce store, he gets a banana, which we learned earlier is Nyajira's favorite food. There's also a part in the sewers where Michael has to feel his way around in the dark and eventually pick up a dead mouse. Once we've done everything we're supposed to do, a road that was blocked by construction earlier suddenly becomes passable, and we proceed to a whole new area of the city, which constitutes Chapter 3 of the game.
What's Micah?
And in this new area, we're just continuing Michael's preparation for his rematch with Nyajira. At the pet shop, Michael is given some free catnip. Man, the pet shop owner in this series is the weirdest looking character design. And in one of the stupidest parts in the game, Michael meets a thief, and here you have to use the photograph of Popo, which the thief promptly steals. Yep, you need to have the thief steal the photo. But a large part of this chapter will be spent at the house of a girl named Kayoko and her dog Shinnosuke, who is a pretty major character in the series. Basically, whenever they need a dog character to compare the cats to, or to compete with Michael, they just use Shinnosuke. He's an unlucky dog who gets unfairly compared to Michael, who is usually determined by the human adults to be the better pet. Only Kayoko likes Shinnosuke and dislikes Michael. Both Kayoko and Shinnosuke say they might know something about Popo, but their lips are sealed. We spend a bit of time finding out what both of them like, and then obtaining those items so that we can bribe them, only to find out that neither of them actually knows anything. Wow, that was productive. Although the item we first give Shinnosuke is a rubber bone, Michael also tries some lady's panties that Shinnosuke calls his treasure, which he had buried in the park. Michael digs them up, and while he's there, you also have to have Michael go number 2 in the sandbox to scare the kids away. Not really sure why that part is necessary. But the one part that actually is kind of important to the story is when Michael visits the vet's office. There, while this may look like a human kid with a tail, it's supposed to be a cat strapped to the table. The vet treats Michael's wounds he sustained in the fight against Nyajira and recommends using catnip to defeat her. And when asked about Popo, the vet says there's no reason to worry about her and tells Michael to just hurry on home. But of course Michael's gotta have his rematch with Nyajira. There we literally have to use every one of the items we've obtained to win. And there are a bunch of items I didn't even mention how to find that you also need. After using them all, Nyajira retreats and Michael has won. Afterward, the only item remaining in Michael's inventory is the panties, and proceeding forward will take us to the final chapter of the game. It takes place back in the apartment building, and so we have to switch back to Disc 2 and Drive 2.
What's Micah?
So back in the apartment building, for some reason Michael has to go around ringing a bunch of doorbells and talking to people before his owners get home. He'll show the panties to a bunch of different women before finding the rightful owner. Also, a detective who caught the thief from earlier returns the photo of Popo. What the hell, anyway? We'll go to the home of the game designer again, who this time is named Latok. I guess this is supposed to be a cameo from the protagonist of the Zack series, but he doesn't look much like Latok to me. Latok commends Michael for all his efforts, since now this is really the end of the game, and he reassures Michael that all he has to do now is go home and see the truth for himself. He closes with the English phrase, "See you again," which is funny since I associate that phrase more with the Ys series. So back home, Michael is greeted by his owners who are holding Popo and a baby kitten who looks like Michael. This character becomes known as Minikel in the series, Michael and Popo's son. So of course Popo was never kidnapped in the first place, but rather had been taken to the vet where she was giving birth. And so now Michael's a father, and we also see a scene of his masters, the Kobayashis, moving from their apartment into a house. And before the credits, we're given one bonus What's Michael gag in classic fashion, where Santa is using Michael and a bunch of cats to pull his sleigh. The cats are like, screw this, and get in the sleigh, which Santa ends up having to pull himself. Haha, that's cats for you. Then Michael and family are in the tub for the end credits. Funny, cause usually in the series Michael doesn't like taking baths, but I guess you could say that's the flexible characters and settings of the series again. The credits are a bunch of MicroCabin people, some of whom did work on the Zack series and Blazing Heroes. While the art director was Etsuko Taniguchi of the Zack series, the graphics appear to have been largely outsourced to a company called Studio Ship, and also Thinking Rabbit, who were known for creating Sokoban, a bunch of graphic adventure games for Japanese PCs, and a few early console games. The music was arranged by Ryuji Sasai, who was part of the sound team on some of the Zack games and ports, and who would work later at Square during most of the 1990s.
What's Micah?
The PC-98 version was released shortly after the PC-88 version, and as you can imagine, it's pretty much exactly the same. The text is finer, so it's easier to read and more can fit on the screen at once. The animation was also undoubtedly faster in this version, even on the PC-98 models available in 1989.
What's Micah?
And since this is a MicroCabin game, you can count on an MSX2 version as well. Again, it's the exact same game, and here they managed to even utilize the same graphics on the MSX2 by simply getting rid of the right portrait window and moving the main window over to the right side of the screen. The game does use the FM pack for the music, but the arrangements are not very good, and worst of all, there's no BGM for most of the actual game. Truly a version only a die-hard MSX fan could love.
What's Michael?
What's Michael was a series that was fun to learn about while researching this video. The TV series is entertaining and did manage to get some chuckles out of me. The game, on the other hand, well, on the positive side, the graphics and sound are more than competently done on the PC-88. The music in particular sounds quite good, even while using only the PC-88's monaural FM sound chip, and I would expect no less from MicroCabin. Since the adventure was a quick and easy playthrough with a walkthrough, I wouldn't say I had a terrible time, and I'm happy to have played through it. But when I imagine trying to play this game without one, I think this may actually be one of the worst games I've ever played on the channel. The story is boring, and the goal of the game is unclear. I mean, aren't we supposed to be looking for Popo? Nyajira is just blocking the way forward. She doesn't even know where Popo is. And what you need to do to progress often has nothing to do with either Popo or Nyajira. Talking to characters enough times so that they disappear from a particular screen in order to trigger some unrelated thing that happens on another screen is not good adventure game design. Just compare to a good game in the genre like Snatcher. While it's by no means a perfect game either, and there are certainly parts where players get stuck, at least the events you need to go through are logical and serve to push the story forward. Here we get very little of that. It seems that some graphic adventure creators at the time were frustrated by how quickly their games could be completed, and were in an arms race to make their games as difficult to figure out as possible. On the forum included with the game, it says that players who can't figure the game out even after a month or two should send away for the hint book. Only the shipping cost is required. And while offering a free hint book may seem like a really nice gesture, it's also a lazy workaround and a poor substitute for just making a logical game that smart players can eventually figure out on their own. I still love you, MicroCabin, I really do, but I wish this game was better. At least through making this video, I was able to learn about the series. I actually kind of enjoyed the What's Michael TV anime, and I hope that at least now you know What's Michael as well. Thanks for watching this episode of PC-88 Paradise. This video was a request from my longtime patron, Weird Proc. It was an interesting and quick one, so I was happy to make the video. Really, I was. And a huge thanks to everyone else scrolling by, as well as all of you watching right now. Hope to see you back again next time.